Yo, all right, so the moment feels like it's upon us. We got September 13th, turns Bud Crawford versus Canelo Alvarez in a mega fight at Allegiant Stadium, the Raiders spot out in Vegas. And why don't we just talk a little bit about where things stand at this point? So right now, they've had two of the three press conferences, one in Riyadh and one in New York City, and they're about to have the last one in Vegas. And to this point, it's been interesting, right? So the first one out in Riyadh, be honest with you, I didn't like it. And it's not really because or for the same reasons that everybody else was talking about they didn't like it. I didn't like it because the shit looked like a debate. That's how the stage was set up. It looked like, it's academic or something like that. It did not look like a scenario, a venue for an upcoming confrontation. And so I was hoping by the time they got to New York that it was going to look a little different. And of course, the fighters are getting close to it. So, they thinking and feeling like, okay, well, this is for real now. They starting to get into it a little bit more, which I like a lot. I'm not really one of them dudes that's like, these motherfuckers is friendly and I don't like it when they're friendly and shit like that. I mean, look, when you get at the top levels of any sport, this is how the champions are. They have learned how to finely tune themselves internally to be able to handle and to deal with anything that comes to them. So if it's another fighter that comes to them, if it's another issue with another fighter, they not tripping. They're not like losing their head. So it didn't really bother me in that way because of that. So now here we are going to Vegas, and more I keep having these conversations about who's going to win, the likelihood. And at this stage in the game, today is June 24. So as I think through it, here's where I land on it. I think back a lot to that Mike Tyson versus Evander Holyfield. Not the one where he bit his ear, but the one where Holyfield stopped him. And I think about that fight because growing up, I was a massive Tyson fan, like everybody else, right? Everybody who loves to see knockouts, I was a huge Tyson fan. My pops was a huge Evander Holyfield fan. His big thing always was Evander got so much heart. You're never going to stop Evander. He got too much heart. You're going to go in there, do woo, 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 and it's going to be a wrap. And so I thought Mike was going to win the fight. But I had seen so many of Evander's fight because my pops was such a big Holyfield fan. So I knew what he had, but I was hoping Mike was going to do it. You know what I'm saying? Mike was of the culture in a different way than Evander, because New York had that moment when Mike was hot. So I'm going into the fight thinking he's going to win. We all know how it turned out. But really the question is why? And how does this shit relate to Crawford Canelo? So I really think that Mike really had one way to win the fight. He had one chance, one style. Everybody and their mother know how Mike Tyson gonna fight. Ain't no secrets. Everybody know what he coming with. He coming with power. He's swinging wide. He throwing big shots. He's extremely explosive. So sometimes you think he's not in range, but his explosiveness, he got these bunnies. He can launch himself forward, catch you with the check hook, right, anything. He just was extremely explosive. And so I'm thinking he's going to bring that same thing. Of course, Evander's thinking he's going to bring that same thing. But on the flip side, Evander had more than just power. He has more than power. And he knew from his days in the amateurs, if you go back and listen to everything he says, he knew that Mike was essentially a dude who was extremely powerful, but he did not really have the boxing skill that the most elite fighters had. And so what happened, or at least what people are thinking, is it's not going to matter. People thinking, oh, it's not going to matter. He's just going to hit you with a big shot, get you up out of there, and it's nothing. But the reality is, for a man who's really strong and got really big shots and is even explosive, that's your one tool. You got one tool. He's not Tank Davis, who is explosive in the same way, but fights off the back foot, has good defense, is really clever in there. He has great movement, really good feet. He's not really like that. He's got okay feet. He's got great movement side to side. But the point is, he didn't really have a means of deploying the power to get to Evander. And the only reason that happened was because Evander knew ahead of time what Mike was going to do. Everybody knew what he was going to do. We all knew how he was going to fight. We all knew it. And so Evander walks in the door thinking, if I can figure out a way to negate this motherfucker's power, what's plan B? What's he going to do next? It's not obvious, right? It's not obvious what he would do. So he might not have no plan. And I think Evander walked in the door like, yo, if I negate this power, this motherfucker ain't gonna have no plan B. And then when he has to fight it out in a way that he's not used to fighting it out, is that gonna work? So he say, okay, we're gonna go in this fight, and the way I'm gonna negate this power is I'm gonna smother him. Now, Evander is probably, for my money, the best inside fighter for heavyweight ever. It's no fucking secret why he was heavyweight champion so many times, right? How he kept getting the title back. He was exceptional on the inside. His inside game is like nobody's game. He crushed Larry Holmes. He crushed, the only guy he didn't really fight on the inside like that was George Foreman. George Foreman had the cross guard, and so he really couldn't get into Foreman and get up under that and do all that. That's probably the only fight I've seen of his where he really didn't fight like that on the inside. Of course, there's some cruiserweight fights he had like that where he was just super quick and bouncing around and could get a guy out of there. But a lot of the heavyweight fights, he fought on the inside. And he knows, and a lot of fighters know, look, if you got a guy who's super explosive and he's got really good power, if you get under his body, right? If you get close up under him, he's not really going to have the space to take that step back and to be able to deploy the power and get the shot off clean. He's going to always be kind of throwing the punch with no leverage. And so Holyfield, that was the strategy. I know what this motherfucker going to do. And so when he come in here with that bullshit, I'm smothering him. And Mike got frustrated because he kept getting smothered. He couldn't really take a step back and get his shots off the way he wanted to. And that was Holyfield's plan. And I see the same thing with Canelo. Everybody in the world knows what Canelo's going to do. Everyone. We all know his game. Hands up. Try to walk you down. High guard. Everybody knows. This is not 7-8 years ago, where the second fight against Triple G, where he's going to do some shit off the back foot and all of that. In part because he's effectively fighting in another division right now, doing this 168 undisputed title fight with Terrence Crawford. This is effectively a different division for him. People always say it like, oh, 168, that's his division. But really, with this particular fight, it's really a different division for him. Because you're fighting a dude who's naturally in a different division. And so what you're going to get from him is shit you see in different divisions. You're going to get some shit from him you're going to see from a super welterweight. You're going to get the kind of foot speed that you're going to see from a super welterweight. You're going to get the kind of movement and maybe some of the shots that you might see from a middleweight. It's really, I understand the weight is at 168. We all know it. But really, the fight is about the matchup. And given this matchup, he's fighting a much smaller guy. So in essence, he's got to be able to catch up. to the smaller guy, to the faster guy, to the guy with really good feet and exceptional distance control. So I think the fact that everybody knows how Canelo's going to walk into the fight means that it's much easier for Bud to prepare than it is for Canelo to prepare. Canelo doesn't know what Bud's going to do. Bud could start out the fight right-handed, maybe orthodox, and then say, you know what, second round, I'm going to switch it up. I'm southpaw. And if he wants to, he fucking switch it up in the middle of the second. Okay, that's one wrinkle. But one of the reasons that he's really difficult amongst, I mean, it's dozens, but one of the reasons that it's real difficult, I think, to plan for him is because he really is exceptional with balance. And I think that shit goes, like, undervalued a lot. People who don't really understand or really look at, you know, fights, the nuances and details. I mean, we talking about the Tyson and Holyfield fight. When Holyfield knocked him down, he knocked him down with a shot to the body. Tyson fell on his butt. Why? He was off balance. Balance is everything, bro. Like, you seen that shit with Errol Spence? Half of the fight, half of the deal was that Errol was off balance. He didn't have a solid base when he was moving and trying to throw a shot. And when you off balance like that, and you're with a star, somebody who is really, really talented and is always on balance and has his center of gravity underneath him all the time, it's much more difficult to move him. When your center of gravity is lower like that, it's harder to move a person. So if you're actually moving around the ring, left and right, you spinning off your foot, you trying to figure out where you're going to throw a shot, and you find yourself seeing an opportunity and you go for it, and when you go for the shot, you off balance, you fucked up in the game. Because somebody who really is a tactician is going to be waiting for you to get your feet crossed or for you to lean over your knee. They're going to be sitting there waiting, or for you to put all your weight on your front foot as you're stepping forward and thinking about jabbing. You off balance. If you standing here on your front foot, leaning all your weight forward, and somebody comes and hits you on the side and they're strong, they're going to move your body over. Canelo's constantly off balance. It's a big deal. It's a big deal because, like Mike, he doesn't naturally have a way to deploy his large shots with somebody who's not as big as him. Mike naturally didn't have a way to deploy his shots inside. He was inside. He was inside with Evander, but he couldn't really get the shots off. That's the thing. You need the space to be able to get your shots off. The shit is almost like when you see like basketball players that are exceptional shooters, like a JJ Redick type player, you know? Like a lot of players who've been marksmen, Ray Allen, you know, other players like that. They're exceptional from certain spots. Now, Ray could damn near shoot from anywhere, but the point is, these people are exceptional in different spots. And so what do you always hear people say? Get to your spot. You got to get to your spot. Yeah, they're trying to get to a place where the conversion rate is extremely high. Same thing in baseball. You know, they're sitting there waiting for certain pitches in certain places because they have much more success hitting in that spot. Well, in boxing, it's not a lot of difference in that. You know, you need to be able to get to a place where you can fire off your shots. And for Canelo, he does this wild shit where he throws his left arm really wide and his right hand up. If he's doing a check hook, his body is completely exposed. He's launching forward because that's how he throws his strongest punch. You know, Bivol told us when he was fighting Better Biev, he said, look, I mean, who hits harder? I'm going to have to say Better Biev hits harder because Canelo kind of hits hard, but the thing is, he's just putting all his weight into every single shot. He's throwing his hardest punch every single time. That's the difference. He's really has to be in a position to throw. He can't throw off any angle. That's why he couldn't get the Skull. That's why he kept whiffing when he was throwing wide hooks to Skull. Skull would just step back, right? Because Canelo's not the type of person, not the type of fighter that can throw punches from any angle. That's not him. He doesn't have that. He's not that type of, he's not Lomachenko. He's not going to be fucking walking and moving and throwing punches that are power punches in a different direction. He doesn't have that. His thing is, my feet need to be set. Same with Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson gonna knock you out, it's gonna be because his feet set. His feet are in one place, he got his base, he got low center of gravity, he can explode, throw the shot. And up getting smothered and up under a dude, and you gotta launch a shot from up in here and all this kind of shit. That ain't working. He's not like that. That's why he couldn't get the shots off. Same thing with Canelo. So the question is, when he comes forward, he doesn't have a jab. He's not a jabber. He does some real, he does, when he's going to throw the right hand, he does a double jab to try to get close, and then he throws the right hand. The shit he does it every fucking fight. Like the same combination. Left hand, 2 double jabs, go for the right hand. He does the same shit. So if he's not doing that, right, jabbing his way in, which Bud obviously is going to know this motherfucker's tendencies are. If he's not doing that double jab right hand, he doesn't use a jab. So if you don't use a jab against a guy with longer arms, how do you actually get inside? How are you going to get your shots off? This guy's arms are longer than yours. And the key thing is that he's not everybody else. He has something that everybody else doesn't have, And this is just my, Canelo breakdown. This is why I think Bud has an opportunity. I mean, I have another flip side one where I'm like, I can look at Canelo's shit and be like, yo, this is why Canelo got an opportunity. But what I've been seeing mostly is that if I look at all his fights, I don't know how he's actually going to get the shots off. Bud is quick. His feet are quick. And he's a master at distance. And so he's one of them dudes that has the most subtle foot movements. And people don't understand how big of a deal that is. Because if I have a 4-inch reach advantage and I have a subtle half a step to the side or half a step backwards, and you think you're in range, and you choose to throw a hook, and that hook comes right here, just this close to my face, because I took that half a step back, I evaded it, and I can pull, and then I can respond, you're kind of at a disadvantage. If you're a bigger dude, if you're Canelo. So basically, you're just going to have to bull your way in. You have to put your hands up and literally walk in there with your hands up, ribs exposed, everything else exposed, right? Your vision partially blocked. And you're going to have to take your chances that the guy who is across from you, who is known for super duper accurate punches, is going to not be able to see the opportunity, and you're going to be able to get close enough. He's not going to understand distance, and you're going to be able to throw a big shot and hit his arms, hit his ribs, hit the back of his head, hit him wherever, And I think that realistically, when I look at fights from history, I don't see how that happens. I don't really see how it happens. In the beginning, I don't even think it's going to be that difficult for Bud to get the respect. I really don't. Because if I look back at Canelo's last 5 fights, he's never had anybody who's hit him clean in the face. Pinpoint accuracy. Go back and look at that Spence fight with Bud. Every shot, clean, bang, on the money. And the shots that are accurate and pinpoint are much more devastating than a shot that's just a powerful, hard shot that you see coming that you can brace for. Now, Canelo's not a one-shot knock a guy out kind of dude at all. He's never been like that. He's not Mike Tyson. Mike Tyson hit a motherfucker with a left hook, you going to sleep. That's Mike Tyson. Canelo is a beat you down over 6 to 8 rounds kind of dude. He is the cumulative impact of all these fucking punches are just gonna wear you the fuck down. That's really who he is. So if we don't really have no evidence of Canelo getting people out of there with 1 or 2 shots, that never happens. He don't fight nobody and then in the second round he catch him with a hook and then they laid out on the canvas. That never happens. I don't see that. Please share with me where y'all see that. I don't see that. He's a cumulative puncher. So that means he needs to consistently get to Bud. Not once or twice. He got to do this shit the whole fight. And Bud is really, really fucking quick. And it's nuanced quickness. It's very, he's not Shakur Stevenson, who I love, who I think is incredible. But I think Roy Jones pointed it out. He said the one thing Shakur does, which he can improve on, is that when he jumps out of range from somebody else's shot, he's too far out of range to land his own shots. So he has good range in the sense that he knows where you are and he knows if you can hit him. And he stays outside of it when he needs to stay outside of it, which is what you want. The only thing is, and we'll see against Zepeda coming up here in July, but he's usually jumping out of range too far to respond immediately. Bud is not like that. Bud ain't nothing like that. He step off to the side, it's a half a step, bang, he right back in there. He doesn't jump out of range like that. He just manipulates your ability to understand whether you're in range or not. Now, I'm saying all this stuff based on what I watched on the tape. Just like with Tyson and Holyfield. You watch those dudes, they go to war. Holyfield smothers him. Tyson is not nearly as successful fighting on the inside where he doesn't have the leverage for big shots. And he gets dragged into the deep water. And everybody knows in boxing, the guys who are super duper muscular, they have a hard time as the rounds go on because it takes a lot of oxygen when you got all that muscle. You need a lot of oxygen to flow to your muscles when they're that big. When you have more muscle, you need more oxygen. And when you don't get more oxygen in, you get fucking tired. This is why these heavyweight fights be 5 rounds, 4 rounds. These boys got to get you with 1 shot. They know it. Most heavyweights are not going 12 rounds, bro. They're too big. They have too much muscle mass. And same thing with Tyson. He had too much muscle mass to be like in the deep water with Evander Holyfield. You know, even if he had a great camp, you got 2-3 great camps back to back. That's a big man. It's a muscular man. So he gonna burn out. Same thing with Canelo. He always burns out. Why are we acting like this isn't real? All his fights, he burns out by the 8th round, 9th round. Come the 12th round, when you're supposed to finish strong, he never finished strong. He's just a bigger dude with a lot of muscle mass. So if he goes late in the fight, he's not gonna have the juice. If he has to slug with you and try to like get shots off and he misses a bunch of shots and he can't really land, it's gonna burn him out. So I can see the argument that Canelo gets to Bud's arms and he really is just punishing his arms. So much so that by the 5th, 6th round, Bud has a hard time lifting his arms up and it makes him really tired. And then it's harder for him to move around and then Canelo gets to him and just wears him down. That's conceivable, right? But the problem is it assumes that Bud's just gonna fucking stand there. It's gonna assume that he's not great at distance. It assumes that he's not gonna slip things. This isn't Madrimov, you know? I've seen so many different conversations happening talking about the Madrimov fight. This isn't Madrimov. Canelo doesn't have feet like that. He doesn't move in and out. He's not quick. That's a totally different fight from a totally different fighter with a totally different skill set. Canelo don't have that skill set. If he did, this would be a different conversation. Now, if he was going up to face Canelo and Canelo had Madrimav's feet and he had his own power, then this is a whole different conversation. And I'm like, he has too many ways to win. He's got multiple ways to win. He can get inside, he can get outside, he can make you miss, but he can make Bud miss. And then when he want to deploy that shot, bam, he got him. This is different. This man doesn't even shuffle in the ring. He walks everywhere in the ring. He's slow. Everybody know he's slow. This ain't no, it's kind of like how Zepeda is a beast. Zepeda's a fucking beast. He's strong as an ox, but his feet slow. Them feet slow as shit. And it's not going to work against elite fighters. You have to have something else. Zepeda, we know what we're going to get from him. Just like Canelo, we know what we're going to get. It's no surprise. And the question is, just like great players in any other sport, you looked at Barry Bonds when he plays for the Pirates. If the motherfucker was not hitting, he was stealing bases. The great ones can do multiple things at the top. Multiple. They can do everything. And I think Canelo is... it goes without saying. The motherfucker's exceptional. It goes without saying. He is who he is. He's proven who he is. I think he's had some light touches in a number of fights. I think he does a lot of good matchmaking. But, that doesn't take away from the fact that he's a beast. And he's proven himself over the years. It's not just like 1 or 2 days or some shit like this. He's proven himself over time. But I think this is a bridge too far for him. I think this is an exceptional athlete. This is a top-tier athlete. Canelo Alvarez is not a top-tier athlete. He's like exceptionally explosive and exceptionally strong. But to be a top-tier elite athlete in the world, you need a little bit more than just power and explosiveness. You need more than that. And I think it looks like you have more when you fight Berlanga. I think it may look like you have more, when you fight Billy Joe Saunders. I watched that fight. I remember he stepped back and did that counter uppercut and broke the man's face. And I remember thinking, God damn, this motherfucker's strong. Shit. A step back. Yeah. Hold on to that. Yo, you look incredible against Billy Joe Saunders. Billy Joe Saunders might have decent feet for a bigger kind of dude. He might have had decent feet. But in real terms, Billy Joe Saunders is not a great fighter. He's average at best. And then people in UK will think otherwise because they're going to support the home team, and I'm not mad at that shit. But he's not an exceptional fighter. He's not. So he looks like a world beater when he's fighting all these dudes. He looks incredible. You don't have to have no fast feet you fighting Billy Joe Saunders. You don't have to have no fast feet if you motherfucking fighting Berlanga. You ain't got no fast feet. You ain't got to have no jab with Berlanga. These are... Terrence Crawford is a whole different category of athlete. A man who's ambidextrous. A man who is... we all know the story. 2-time undisputed, 2 different weight classes. They've been to 4 weight classes and won titles. And that doesn't necessarily mean you're elite. But it does show you that you've gone through a number of styles. I'll leave y'all with this. Now, people are going to take me out of context when I say this, but check this out. Jeff Horn is not Canelo Alvarez. Let's not get this confused. Jeff Horn is no Canelo Alvarez. I'm not saying he is. I'm not saying that Jeff Horn has the talent that Canelo Alvarez has. I'm not saying any of that. What I am saying is, if you go back and look at that fight, Crawford versus Jeff Horn, it was Crawford's first fight at 147. And everybody said he couldn't handle Jeff Horn's power because they watched him beat Pacquiao. And, he was strong. Jeff Horn was a strong dude, He wasn't a world beater, But he was a champion. He was a strong dude. He beat Manny Pacquiao straight up, fair and square. I mean, like, he did what he was supposed to do to get in the position to face Bud. So then he did. Bud comes up, was a mandatory because he was a undisputed champion at 140. And when they go into the fight, all anybody talks about is how you're going to handle his power. So now when you watch the fight, when you watch it, look at what Horn tries to do to get inside to get his shots off. Horn ain't got no jab. He ain't had no jab. He had power. He wanted to maul you, lay all on you, make it an ugly fight. He had all of that. He's ugly fight kind of guy. Make it nasty. Make it ugly to watch, and then catch you slipping in between shots as he's doing it. Bang, bang. You don't see it coming. He catch you real quick because he leaning on you the whole fight. You know? That was his game plan. He come in, high guard, just like Canelo, walk you down. Now, I'm not saying they're the same. Here's what I'm saying. I'm saying they basically are going to have the same strategy. And while Canelo is a better athlete than Jeff Horn, and Canelo is far more explosive than Jeff Horn, and it's not truly a comparison if we're talking about them as fighters. That's why I'm not talking about them as fighters and comparing them as fighters. But what I am saying is they're going to have the same strategy going into the fight. And if you look at Bud, how Bud handles that strategy of high guard, walk towards him with no jab, no consistent jab from different angles, he gonna fucking check hook you all night. Give you check hooks every time you fucking think. Bam! Check hook. As soon as you fucking think about putting your head in and stepping in, bam! Check hook. And he's ambidextrous. So if he gets in that southpaw stance and hits you with the check hook and you trying to do the high guard and walk in, you fucked up in the game. Same strategy gonna get same results. If you're gonna beat Bud, he's gonna have to find a way to cut off the ring and for his feet to be a little bit quicker. Or it's not even his feet have to be quicker. It's just that he has to have perfect timing. When Bud moves, he's got to be able to get in position almost at the same exact time that man's moving. He's got to have that kind of timing. When Bud throws, he's got to have that kind of timing. He doesn't have to be as fast if he has the timing. You don't have to be as quick. You don't have to be as fast. You don't have to be as agile. You don't have to do any of that shit if your timing is perfect. Look at Spence Crawford. His timing was perfect. Every single fucking time Spence threw, bam! Crawford threw between the punches. His timing was exceptional. That's what Canelo would have to do. And I think when he hit Berlanga with that check hook in the second, third round, whenever the fuck that was, he showed I have exceptional timing with my hands. Now, Berlanga's not quick, but it was exceptional timing. He timed him, bam, caught him, dropped him. He dropped him because he hit him with a shot that he never saw. He never saw the shot coming, and he never saw it coming because Canelo's timing was perfect. That's what he's going to have to do if he's going to win. He's going to have absolutely perfect timing, but that's a tall order against Terence Crawford compared to Berlanga. So I'm going to wrap this up by saying Tyson ultimately lost the fight because he got smothered. He couldn't get no shots off. And then he got dragged into the deep water. And he got hit with a couple shots. And that was it. The ref stopped the fight. And nobody would have thought at the time that you can stop Mike Tyson. Nobody. Obviously, they seen Buster Douglas do it, but the interesting thing is Buster Douglas was 6'4", maybe almost 6'5", over 250 pounds. He's a huge dude. And then once he beat Mike Tyson, he turns around and fights Evander Holyfield, and Holyfield stops him. Stops him. Stop the big motherfucker, because it's not size. It's not who's muscled up, who's stronger. That's not boxing. That's not how the game works. The game is about hitting and not getting hit. Tyson couldn't hit and not get hit. Jeff Horn couldn't hit and not get hit. Spence couldn't hit and then not get hit. Canelo doesn't really have the feet. And he doesn't have the hands. And he doesn't have the reach. Other guys that he would have hit, like a Charlo and some of these other dudes who don't have fast feet, they sat there and stood on the ropes and was just like, all right, I'm going to just absorb this. I'm going to just catch the shot. Bud not doing that. And I think it's going to look a lot like the Holyfield-Tyson fight. I don't think Bud is going to necessarily fight on the inside, but I think he's going to stand right in front of him. I think he's going to stand right in front of him, just like he stood in front of Spence. This is going to be the Spence 2 fight. Unless Canelo brings out some exceptional timing. That's his only shot. He's got no jab. He's really, against this type of fighter, he really doesn't have any evidence in his past fights that would communicate that he can do that with a quick fighter, with an exceptional athlete. He's got no fights like that. Where are the exceptional athletes on his resume? Respect to him, because I like this dude a lot. And I think he did a lot, and he overcame cancer. And he's a fucking, he's a beast, like in the division that he was in at middleweight at the time. But keeping it real, Danny Jacobs is not a great athlete. Danny Jacobs is kind of like a Andre Ward kind of athlete. But he didn't have the IQ that Andre Ward had. He didn't have none of that. You know what I'm saying? So he wasn't an athlete. Everybody's going to mention Lara. Everybody's going to mention these other guys like that he fought who were great athletes. I mean, obviously, Bivol is a great athlete. Bam, in and out, in and out, in and out, in and out, moving. And what happened? Canelo had no timing for him. He had no timing with a man with feet like that. Bud's feet are quicker than Bivol's. Bud started at 135. That doesn't mean he's quicker, but we've seen him in fights and we know what his feet look like. You know, he's quicker than Bivol. So you got a man in Bivol at 175 whose feet were quicker than Canelo's, and he was bigger than Canelo, and his feet were quicker. And you telling me somehow Bud's feet are not going to be as quick as Bivol's? I'm sorry, man. There's no evidence to support that. I don't see the shit. So I think it ends up a lot like the Tyson Holyfield fight, or Jeff Horn, or Errol Spence, or any of these guys where they're outmatched because of the other guy's superior boxing skill, hand speed, foot speed, distance, timing, all of the shit that nobody wants to think about in a boxing match. People just think, oh, big guy fight little guy, big guy win. More muscle fight less muscle equal muscle win. That's as far as people go in their minds, because their eyes tell them one guy's bigger than the other, therefore he's got to win. And in reality, I don't think this shit is even going to be close. Yo, it's your man. I'll be back. That's it for this one. Y'all have a good day. We're going to catch up. Yeah.